One.
Good morning, Director Silva. We can begin the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget.
Director Silver, can you unmute, please? One.
Good morning.
Good morning, Director Silva. We can begin the meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget.
2023 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Ken, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Director Jakes?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Director Ortiz?
Here.
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Ja?
Here.
Director Barclay? Director Barclay is not yet here. Chairman Silva?
Here.
Chairman Silva, you have a quorum with 6 members in attendance. You may proceed to agenda item number 2.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of December 14, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
The motion has been moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Ortiz. I'll call the roll. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion passes with 6 yes votes. Director Silva, you may proceed to agenda item number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Jeremy Fine.
Good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer, and today I'll walk through results for November as well as year-to-date numbers. First up is revenues for November. We see fair and past totals coming in slightly below budgeted expectations, both on an amended budget and original budget basis, but better than November of 2021 by $2.2 million. Reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected. Non-fare box totals coming in better than expected by $1.3 million on both an amended budget and original budget basis. So overall, for the month of November, we hit our budgeted targets for both the amended budget and original budget, and we're better than November of 2021 by $1.8 million. On the next page, you see year-to-date revenues, and you see fair and past totals coming in on a year-to-date basis, slightly better than expected on both an amended budget and original budget basis by $1.7 million against the amended budget and $1.1 million versus the original budget, but almost $50 million better than 2021 year-to-date. Reduced fare subsidy continues to come in as expected, and non-fare box totals coming in better than expected by $6.6 million on both an amended budget and original budget basis. This leaves us for the year-to-date numbers, total revenues of $8.3 million of positive variance against the amended budget and $7.7 million of positive variance against the original budget. And again, interesting to note that this is almost $54 million better than 2021 year-to-date numbers. On the next couple of pages, we overview expenses. We see the various line item expenses outlined here. Labor coming in better than expected by about $5.4 million on both an amended budget and original budget basis. Materials coming in a little over $1 million better than expected. Fuel and power continue to be strong performers for us and positive variance on both of those line items. Injuries and damages and security services either coming in as expected or slightly below expectations, and other expenses coming in better than expected by $3.6 million, which leaves us for the month of November about $12.4 million better than both the amended budget and original budget basis. On the next page, you see your year-to-date numbers. And again, following a similar form, we see positive variance across all budgeted line items. So we see a total operating expenses on a year-to-date basis against the amended budget of $125.6 million of positive variance, and against the original budget, $158.8 million of positive variance. And if you factor in our positive variance on year-to-date revenues, This leaves us on a net basis against the amended budget positive by 133.9 million and against the original budget by 166.5 million. On the next pages, we outline public funding receipts. For the month, we see continued positive variance for both sales tax and PTF. We see sales tax for September coming in a little over $8 million better than expected on the amended budget and a little under $10 million versus the original budget of positive variance. PTF, again, continues to come in positive by $2.7 million against the amended budget and $5.3 million against the original budget. As we've seen over the past couple of months, the real estate transfer tax continues to lag budgeted expectations as interest rates have moved higher, impacting real estate sales. We see negative variance of about 1.9 against the amended budget and about 3 million against the original budget. PTF on RET is slightly below expectations on an amended budget basis, but positive versus the original budget. And ICE funding continues to come in slightly positive. So overall, for the month, we have about $8.8 million of positive variance against the amended budget and about $12.3 million of positive variance against the original budget. On the next page, you see year-to-date numbers. Again, following a similar type form, we see positive variance for sales tax and PTF, a little bit of negative variance for the amended budget on real estate transfer tax, but positive against the original budget, and PTF on RET and ICE funding coming in positive on a year-to-date basis, which leaves us with a positive variance against the amended budget of $36.6 million and a little over $100 million, $103.2 million of positive variance against the original budget. On the next page, you see our federal relief funding draws. And again, because of the positive variance that we've seen on public funding, as well as the positive variance that we see on our expenses and revenues, we've been able to make lower than estimated draws against the federal relief funding. For the month, we're drawing $4.9 million against the 3 outstanding grants that we have. Overall, we've drawn down a little under 42% of the total allocation. And this means that we have about a little under $1.3 billion remaining of the federal relief funding. And as we talked about in our 2023 budget discussions, we're expecting these funds to be able to last us through 2025 and into the early part of 2026. On the next page, we see our commodity purchases. We see here for fuel, power, and natural gas, we're locked in for where we need to be for the next year or so. We continue to make selective purchases for fuel for 2024 and 2025. Recently, we've been able to buy some additional allocations of fuel for those outer years. So we're now at 55% of the 2024 volume and 45% of the 2025 volume. Again, we'll continue to look for selective opportunities to buy across all the commodities, but particularly looking at opportunistic pricing for fuel for 24 and 25. This completes my report for November. Glad to answer any questions.
It's very good results. How can you tell us, okay, that we could maintain that trend, okay, in the future months, okay? I mean, and is there anything special, okay, that you want to tell us, okay, in regard, okay, of the results?
So a large portion of the results have been driven by our expenses. We'll continue to look at those, but a large portion of the positive results has also been driven from outperformance on our public funding and primarily sales tax and PTF receipts. Again, we remain, cautious about, how the larger economy will continue to perform. Because that has a direct impact on sales tax receipts. Again, we've seen some softness in the real estate transfer tax over the last couple of months as interest rates have gone up. But, again, sales tax to date has continued to hold in there pretty good. And we'll continue to keep a very close eye on that as we move forward. And we'll report on that, obviously, on a monthly basis to the board.
So you're comfortable, okay, that this can become, okay, the yearly results?
Yeah, so I think we'll be able to close out 2022 pretty close to where we had estimated as part of our budget closeout and discussions about 2023 budget. But again, we remain, cautious about 2023 as we move forward, just because of the impact of the larger economy and what's going on with interest rates and all of the supply chain issues and everything else that's been impacting us over the last couple of years during the pandemic. So again, we'll continue to keep a very close eye on this. But again, we're committed to continuing to control our expenses. That's something that we have direct control over. Continue to drive efforts to regain ridership. Again, that's something that we've been continuing to do with regard to pricing on our passes, integration of the system, and whatnot, and marketing of the system. We'll continue to do those efforts. But again, with regard to public funding, that has a much larger impact and reliance on what's happening on the national and international trends. And we'll continue to keep a very close eye on the receipts for sales tax and the residual of that, which is PTF funding.
Very good. Keep it up.
Chairman Silva, just one other thing to add to Jeremy's comments, and it's something else that we're working very closely on is obviously even before the pandemic, we were facing some structural challenges around the subsidies that CTA receives from the state. And that's not unique to CTA. It also includes Metra and PACE. And there is a need for us to address that concern as we go forward. The good news is that, as Jeremy pointed out, the overperformance of our subsidies to date in combination with the federal emergency relief funding that we have has given us a cushion to basically work on this bigger structural problem over the course of the next year or two. The expectation, and we've been working very closely with both RTA and the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization, CMAP, on developing both potential revenue streams as well as strategies for how to move forward for that bigger conversation. But there's no question, and this is part of the bigger fiscal cliff that Jeremy alludes to in his out-year projections for CTA, that we're going to need a bigger substantial subsidy fix in the long term. And that is something that we are very focused on at the same time as addressing the other things that Jeremy indicated that we do have control over, which includes our costs and obviously our increasing ridership and our fare box revenue. But the third pillar of our overall budget, which is public subsidy, is one in which we need to get a permanent fix to. And right now, that does not exist.
Okay. Thank you.
So President Carter, Jeremy, I heard Jeremy said that we were a little lower than expected with the withdrawal with the federal fund. That doesn't put us in any jeopardy of losing any fund, does it?
No.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, President Carter, go ahead.
No, we are consistently drawing down funds every month, which is consistent with our strategy around the use of these funds. And as Jeremy points out in his chart, we're drawing funds out of all three buckets of funding available, which without getting into internal, federal administration, bureaucracy, is how you show that you have grants that are active. You have to show that you're drawing money down from those grants in order to show that they're active. And as it stands right now, no, we're not concerned about these funds being taken away, but we will continue to obviously monitor developments in Congress. With a Republican House, there may be a lot more discussion about how money was spent for COVID emergency relief than there may have been in the past. But we're certainly prepared for and have been working very closely at the national level to make sure that there is a good understanding that these are funds that are desperately needed, that loss of those funds would have an immediate substantial impact on the ability to provide service. And in reality, there's going to have to be even more funding identified in order for us to basically keep the services running at the level that our customers expect while we wait to get our ridership back up to the levels that they used to be in the pre-pandemic environment.
Thank you. All right.
Are there any other questions from the directors?
No questions. Thank you.
No questions.
There are no further questions, Chairman Silva. You may proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a third amendment to a local location pilot agreement with Amazon.com Services LLC to install, operate, and maintain package delivery lockers at designated rail stations. Jeremy Fine.
Thank you. Again, good morning. I'm Jeremy Fine, your Chief Financial Officer. And today I present for your consideration a third amendment to the current agreement with Amazon that will extend the pilot period for Amazon delivery lockers in CTA stations until July 17, 2023. This pilot is intended to test the viability of delivery lockers in CTA stations. It was approved by the Transit Board in June 2020 for a period of 1 year, and the Transit Board has approved 2 extensions to the pilot program. CTA staff and our real estate advisor, JLL, have been reaching out to vendors to solicit proposals for a longer-term contract to place delivery lockers in CTA stations. During the extension term, staff will continue to work with interested vendors and to evaluate all proposals received with the goal of presenting 1 or more contracts to the CTA Board for approval. The lockers provide an amenity to CTA customers who are able to conveniently pick up or return their Amazon packages as part of their CTA trip. The lockers also provide positive benefits to the region by reducing congestion and emissions from delivery vehicles. Amazon is fully responsible for all costs related to the procurement, installation, servicing, and operation of the lockers. During the extended pilot period, Amazon will continue to pay CTA a monthly flat fee of $25 per machine per month to reimburse CTA for operating expenses, including the cost of electricity. Amazon will continue to maintain insurance coverage for installing and operating the lockers on CTA property. The lockers offer a range of security and accessibility features, and CTA has experienced no security issues with lockers on our property. This concludes my presentation. Glad to answer any questions.
How they doing financially, Amazon, with this new way of handling this, the press, been telling, that things are not good.
They've been happy with the performance of the lockers on our property. And, we extended, or the board extended the pilot previously to allow a more stabilized, experience pattern to evolve, as we've emerged from the pandemic. But Amazon's been happy with the uptick on usage. And again, this has provided us a good benefit to our customers as they're able to pick up and drop off packages as they make their daily commutes.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from any directors concerning this matter?
No question.
Hearing
No
none.
question.
This ordinance requires a roll call vote. Is there a motion to approve and recommend the ordinance for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I will call for a vote. Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Ortiz,
Yes.
Director Lee,
Yes.
Director Jha, Director Barclay,
Stay.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion passes with 5 yeas and 2 abstentions. Chairman Silva, we may proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church for property located at 57 West 95th Street, Chicago, Illinois. Bill Mooney. Bill Mooney
Bill is on mute.
We're not getting any audio from you.
is me?
No, it's Bill.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Good morning.
Good morning.
Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church for property located at 57 West 95th Street to be used for employee parking. Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church owns a surface lot consisting of approximately 7,125 square feet in close proximity to CTA's 95th terminal. This property is useful for safe and secure employee parking, and CTA and Christ Temple have agreed to a 5-year license agreement. The monthly license fee will be $750, and either party can cancel the agreement with 60 days notice. I'll be happy to take any questions on the subject.
Do any of the directors have any questions concerning this license agreement?
No questions.
I have a question. Bill. Who's going to be responsible for security?
We are providing security on the lot.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, let me just say a few words about this ordinance in particular. One of the things that we've been hearing from our employees, particularly since we've rebuilt the 95th Street station, is their concern about their personal safety in the area around that location. And as you know, the 95th Street terminal operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there are employees who are constantly coming and going. Up until now, we had a relatively small parking lot right adjacent to the facility, but most of our employees were just parking on the street wherever they could find parking, and that was further exacerbated by the fact that in that area, a lot of the streets have permit parking, which the employees obviously would not be able to park in. And so this is, I think, an example of working closely with our employees, with Don and our operating staff, with Bill Mooney and the real estate group, and with Nancy Ellen and Kevin Reiner, security team, to come up with a solution here that will give a secure location for our employees to park their vehicles, and also provide a way for us to give them safe passage to and from the facility when they have to come and go from work. I think it'll be very well received by our employees. It's another example of us showing that we care about the personal safety of our employees and that we're doing everything that we can to ensure that wherever we can, and particularly in this location. So I want to commend Bill and his team for really scouring the area and trying to identify locations that might be suitable for us. We're obviously appreciative to the church for their willingness to allow us access to this facility for our employees' use. And I look forward to announcing to our employees that they now have this option available to them once the board takes action on this particular license agreement.
How many parking spots?
Bill, how many parking spots are there?
Between 20 and 25.
All right.
I have a quick question. I also encourage and support the idea of really thinking about our team members and thinking about their needs. So congratulations on that. It seems like 25 might be a small number for the number of employees there. I take it there might be already a process in place to think about, like, how do employees, is it first come, first served basis for those employees that are there? And also, I just want to confirm that there was some due diligence done to match the rate of the parking fee that was appropriate for the area. So any other comps of parking rental spaces in the area or otherwise. We don't have to go into detail. I just want some assurance or some background information as desired on those 2 points.
The director, this was specifically tied to the value of the license agreement with the church, that it's comparable to other rental for property in the area. Yeah, we did some basic due diligence to what we feel is a really competitive and fair rate for what we're looking for. I would expand on saying that we're not done kind of scouring. This was, as you see, this is a license agreement. It allows us a 60-day termination notice. So there are some ability to get out of this if we find something that is more sizable, more permanent, and better in our interest. This was access we could get today and was readily available to us. And so it was really primed to be able to get something going while we continue to look at bigger opportunities. We're looking at some other sister agency opportunities that may be in the area that may be a little more favorable to us, may have a little more benefit to us in a longer term investment. But as sometimes those agreements take a lot longer to negotiate, we really wanted to get some access today.
Thank you.
Bill, let me just follow up by asking, is this lot going to be used by the church for any of their, and you may or may not know this, for their worship services, maybe on a Wednesday or a Sunday? And if so, is that going to compete with the employees if the church has 30 cars and there are only 25 spaces on a Sunday? Or is it a separate lot total that they don't use?
So the church has 2 lots, Director, and one is directly adjacent to the church, which is their primary usage lot that they use for the majority of their worship services. This has historically been an overflow lot for them that over time they've had less and less use for. The only request they made is there are occasions where they may have a going home service that they need the extra space for. And there is a term in the license agreement that they have to provide us 5 days notice. And there's a limited number of those occasions they can activate in a month, but with that advance notice, we would make the lot available for that period of the services.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
Are there any further questions concerning the license agreement? If
No.
not,
Question.
so no further questions, Chairman Silva.
And now have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval.
So moved.
Second.
The motion was moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Ortiz. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to the contracts.
Our next order of business is the review of contract number A1, a change order for service to pick up from CTA bus garages, scan and archive CTA bus operator daily reports for up to 36 months. No, I don't have a question.
Any questions concerning this contract? Hearing no questions, Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to contract number B1 through B4.
Our next order of business is the review of contract numbers B1 through B4, infrastructure contracts. I don't have a question.
Are there any questions by any of the directors regarding contracts B1 through B4? Hearing no questions, Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to contract numbers G1 and G2.
The next order of business are contract numbers G1 and G2 technology contracts. Can you go through these contracts, okay, a little bit, okay, and give us more understanding of what it is?
Yes, good morning. This is Carolyn Gallagher, your Chief of Technology. We have 2 technology contracts here. The first one is for IBM software licenses. We are extending this contract for 6 months in order to get a better response from the market to the bid. And also we're aligning the dates of these contracts with our hardware contract as we're planning an upgrade later this year. So that's the first one. The second one is our management and maintenance of CTA's system-wide CCTV video system. It was originally a 3-year contract, and this is the second 1-year option. And this contract provides maintenance and management as well as key project support for installations And within this change order, there are 4 different projects that are being covered.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Chairman Silva, there are no questions. You may now proceed to number 6A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place the 7 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Motion.
Sorry, I have a quick question. It was for B1. Could someone provide a little bit more info on the property management service?
Director Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer again. So we are acquiring, as you're well aware, a large quantity of parcels in support of the Red Line Extension project, as these parcels won't be ultimately turned over to the contractor for a few years. It takes time. We're hiring a property management firm to manage the use of the parcels in the interim. So this is to keep them clean of debris, garbage, cut the grass, clear the snow, inspect them. While there are buildings on the parcels, before we can demolish, they're required to inspect the buildings, make sure they're safe, secure. They're required to board them up, to temp fence the property. Ultimately, then what happens is we'll pull those buildings out, demolish them, and then turn them back over to manage as a vacant lot. It's really about being good landlords at this point, and making sure that our presence in the communities is not an eyesore, and that, you know, we make sure that we're going to have a large swath of land here, and we want to make sure we're responsible in the management of it.
Thank you. I imagine that was the case. I just wanted some clarification, so thank you.
We had a very similar agreement during RPM that was a much smaller number of parcels.
Understood. Sorry, I'm happy to second when we're ready.
Okay, yes, we had moved for placement of the contracts on the omnibus. It has been moved. Director Ortiz, you've seconded?
I second.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to number B6.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes. Chairman Silva, you may proceed to committee agenda item number 7.
Finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Barkley?
Yes.
Chairman Silva?
Yes.
The committee is adjourned.
one.
Chairman?
Good morning. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for January 13th, 2023. Kent, please call the roll. Thank you.
Director Jakes?
Here.
Director Miller?
Here.
Director Ortiz?
Here.
Director Lee?
Here.
Director Ja?
Here.
Director Silva?
Here.
Chairman Barkley?
Here.
Chairman Barkley, you have a quorum with 7 members in attendance.
Thank you. Our first order of business is public comment. Kent?
Our first public speaker is Melvin Bailey. Mr. Bailey, are you on?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Bailey. You may start.
Hey, good morning. Yes, I'd like to start with thank you guys for having me at this present time. And board members, I'd like to say good morning and hi to you guys. I would like to talk on 2 topics here. Briefly, I picked up the city buying plan book, and I see there's a contract opportunity for a small vendor. I represent small vendors on the west side and south side of Chicago for opportunity such as what's in the city buying plan book. If you guys can be so kindly to your procurement office, someone that I can speak to so we can start working through that process of getting small vendors possibly qualified to take on some of these contracts and with CTA. And I really appreciate if you guys can assist me in that effort. And then my other comment is that I'm shortlisted on Lake and Kedzie, an Invest Southwest deal with the city of Chicago. And I've been talking to Alderman Jason Irvin and Alderman Walter Burnett. And if I am awarded the project, I would love to work with you guys, and also reached out to several state reps and also state senators to see can we get more lighting on Lake and Kedzie with high visibility. Because if we get awarded the contract to start doing construction in that area, we would love to see a little bit more lighting on that L platform and that L stop, so we can, because we want to make sure that public safety is a big issue for me, why I'm creating jobs and reducing violence. And that's my passion. So at this time, I would like to just say thank you guys, and please consider it. When I talked to Alderman Irvin and Alderman Walter Burnett, he shared with me that I guess at some point the aldermans reached out to you guys about the same matter as far as more lighting at the Lake Street L. And I just want to share that with you guys. I am in talk with them. So thank you guys very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Our next speaker is Rachel Cohen. Good morning, Ms. Cohen.
Hi, good morning. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Ms. Cohen. Good morning. You may start.
Okay, amazing. So my name is Rachel Cohen, and I'm a recent transplant to Chicago. I grew up in Ohio, and this was always kind of the big city. I tell people I lived in New England for the past 7 years. I'm so happy to be back in the Midwest, and I tell everyone out in the Midwest that this was functionally my metropolis. This is my city that never sleeps, et cetera, et cetera. And I absolutely love this city. When I moved here, I sold my car, in large part because the transit maps are so much better than Boston, where I was living previously, and the posted schedules are so much more consistent and frequent. My boyfriend and I moved to an apartment about 2 blocks from the Division stop on the Blue Line. We're really fortunate to be able to afford that. I understand that that level of access is not accessible to many people, including those on the south side. But we booked that, we sold our car because we were so close to an L station. And my boyfriend waited for 45 minutes after arriving at the Division Blue Line stop at 8:30 in the morning to be able to get on a train 2 days ago. I consistently am waiting for 6-7 trains at any time during rush hour. I have pictures. Unfortunately, I can't share them with y'all because I'm on the phone as opposed to on Zoom. But Clark and Lake, every stop in the Blue Line is absolutely packed from the hours of 8 in the morning till 9 in the morning, sometimes 9:30, and then again from 4 to 6. It's gotten to the point where if I can't get out of work before 4, I stay until 7 because I know that I am going to get home at the same time. This is a huge problem in terms of just, I mean, so many different things. There's this idea that people don't use transit because there's like, the reason transit isn't funded is because people aren't using it. That is not my experience. That's not my coworkers' experience. That's not my friends' experience. We are all trying to use transit. We're a generation of people that care a lot about the environmental impact of our travel. And public transit is more accessible, is more environmentally friendly, and it's something that we want to be dedicated to and are unable to be dedicated to because of the lack of availability of transit, both during rush hour and on the weekends. I have waited alone in stations to try and get home at 10 p.m. for 20 to 30 minutes before there has been a single train. And so I'm here to really urge the transit board to increase the frequency and reliability of trains running on every single line in Chicago. And I think if there's an idea of, well, we don't have enough ridership to justify that, I would really encourage you to listen to speakers saying that you are losing ridership because of how infrequent, inconsistent, and crowded trains are. We all really want to take the train. We will be there, we will show up, and we just need the trains to also be there and show up on time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Cohen. Our final speaker is Olivia Gahan. Ms. Gahan, are you on?
Hi, good morning, Chairman.
Good morning, Ms. Gahan.
This is Olivia. I am here to comment on the CTA train service, specifically on New Year's Eve. On the New Year's Eve celebration, the CTA advertised increased service on red, blue, and yellow lines, but the actual delivered service was far worse than advertised. We were able to see specifically the blue line arrival data, and there were a number of trains scheduled between the hours of 11 and midnight. There were 4 trains scheduled in both directions, and only 1 train between those hours actually showed up. Between the hours of midnight and 1, 4 were scheduled going to Forest Park, 2 showed up. The hours of 1 and 2, everything showed up, etc. I don't have to read the data to you all because you also have it. And at least 42 trains should have showed up in total for both directions, for both the blue line going to Forest Park and O'Hare, but only 19 did. Less than 50% of scheduled trains that showed up, with some gaps of over an hour in between the trains. While we're sympathetic to the CTA's worker shortage, it's also deeply disappointing for the continued inaccurate communication issued by the CTA staff. The announcement should have been accurate, should have been stating that schedule would be significantly reduced. And as such, the CTA is continuing to post misinformation and continue to build mistrust between the riders and the schedules. This is very incredibly frustrating. This is negligent. This is inaccurate information. And this has direct impacts both on people's safety, getting home, which is the reason the New Year's Eve trains are free, and on people's reliability and ability to trust that the train is going to show up for them. Thank you for your time.
And thank you for your comments. Chairman, that concludes the public comments.
Thank you to all the public commenters this morning. I'd like to open the floor to the board directors for any additional comments or acknowledgements of the public comment.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director Ortiz.
I was just saying thank you for taking the time to share.
Our next order of business is the President's report. President Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, good morning. Last August, we launched our Meeting the Moment Action Plan and began briefing you on the steps that we were taking to address issues affecting riders, such as the delivery of our bus and rail service that have arisen as part of the lingering effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our action plan was created with the goal of improving the overall CTA travel experience in the face of several key challenges, most notably a workforce shortage that we continue to vigorously address. Over the past 6 months, we have largely been able to report incremental but steady improvement across key performance areas, and I believe the outlook for the coming year is promising. As we closed out 2022 by meeting aggressive hiring goals, launching rail service optimization, implementing several security initiatives, and investing in multiple infrastructure improvement projects and bus and train tracker enhancements, we have already kicked off 2023 with a new optimized bus schedule this past Sunday that, at least initially, is showing substantial improvements in bus service delivery. And by substantial improvements, I mean the preliminary results that we're seeing are suggesting that we're putting out a level of service that is on par with what we were doing in a pre-pandemic level. I remind all of my board members that this is an optimized schedule, which means that the amount of service is not at the level that it was at in a pre-pandemic world. But the commitment that I made at the time that I announced my plan was that we would use this temporary optimization strategy as a way to increase both the availability and reliability of the service that we're putting out. And at least after 1 week of doing this, we've seen extremely positive results in that regard. And I will obviously be sharing that as part of next month's update with a little bit more data. I want you to know, I want both you and our riders to know that we are working diligently to deliver on our commitments. We're also continuing to be as transparent as possible in publishing data and scorecards so everyone can see the progress as well as continued challenges that we face. In this month's Meeting the Moment scorecard, which covers our efforts through December 2022, I want to specifically mention that December service delivery fell short in comparison to the steady progress that we have seen in previous months. And to some degree, that was reflected in the comments that you just heard. Our scorecard clearly reflects that we did not perform to our standards or our customer standards on reliability of both our bus and train service. And I want to provide you a little bit more detail on some of the issues that we faced, as well as the steps that we're taking to address these challenges. The two factors that contribute most heavily to the service impacts were both cold weather and the resulting snowstorm that happened on December 22nd and 23rd, and then extremely higher than normal employee call-offs or absenteeism on several days during the holidays, and specifically on New Year's Eve, which is the comment that you just heard regarding the service that was being provided on New Year's Eve. I think it is important that we take a much closer look at particularly the latter incident, the holiday New Year's Eve absenteeism, as I want you to understand both what happened and why it occurred. Each year during the holiday season, we typically experience a higher than normal level of operators who are absent. CTA is not alone in this challenge. Our public transit peers across the country face similar issues, and even beyond transit, even regular businesses are facing similar challenges given the workforce issues that are being felt throughout the country. We did and we do continue to strategize, plan, and manage our available workforce to try to mitigate the effects of these employees, what we refer to as call-offs, or what you would just look at as absenteeism because of either sick, FMLA, or other unplanned absences, what we refer to. The impact on customer travel in past years, we were able to rely to some extent on the availability of employees in reserve, or what we refer to as our extra board, that would supplement for these absent operators. However, given the current workforce challenges that we're facing, we don't have the size of an extra board available to properly fill these gaps in service, impacting customers' wait times on both buses and trains. That is one of the reasons why we are so focused on increasing our hiring and holding and improving our retainage of our existing employees. That is what's going to ultimately allow us to rebuild our workforces and create an extra board of what I would refer to as spare or additional employees that are available on days when other employees take unplanned absences that ultimately impact our ability to provide service. Historically, it is that extra board that has allowed us to maintain reliable service even when we've had a spike in absenteeism that might occur during the holidays itself. I think what's important to remember right now is that we are operating very close to the margins. I am trying to both put out a level of service that is within the constraints of the workforce that I have, while recognizing in order for that to work, my workforce has to show up. And these are conversations that we have had with the union leadership. We continue to have the union leadership going forward. The importance of employees coming to work and the importance of employees being here when they're scheduled to be here. We also are looking to increase and amplify an employee attendance campaign that we believe will remind our employees of the impact of their failure to come to work, particularly on their peer employees who many times are forced to try to make up for that lost availability with either overtime or other work that they do in order to keep our service running. I think it's also important to really appreciate and understand the complexity of what it takes to put out the level of service that we put out every day. The work that my frontline employees do, my frontline supervisory employees do to both put that service out and to manage it over the course of the day is always a daunting task. And unfortunately, sometimes we fall short. There is no question in my mind that New Year's Eve was one of those times. I think it's also recognized that it wasn't planned for us. So the ability to communicate and to address those types of shortages is really extremely difficult under those circumstances. We're going to continue to work on it, however. We're going to continue to pursue strategies to address this. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is looking at making sure that we're taking appropriate corrective action against those employees which are consistent with our rules and procedures. The other thing that we're doing, as I mentioned earlier, is that we're engaging with our union partners and our employees regarding our leave policy and ensuring that employees are properly availing themselves of this benefit, as opposed to improperly availing themselves of it. And I think it's important to understand that as a management objective, we understand the need for our employees to take time off. We understand the need for our employees to take vacation. We understand the need for our employees to stay home when they are sick. But we also need to balance that against our need to put out service. And unfortunately, we run service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It would have been very easy for us to cut service, like many of my peer agencies did, and eliminate this problem. Instead, as you've heard from even our commenters today, there's a demand for even more service than I'm putting out now. And we're trying to meet that demand as best as possible. On many days, we're successful. On some days, we fail. When they fail, I will let you know that. We are trying to be transparent in the reality of what we're dealing with right now. But what I will tell you is that until we get our workforce back up to the level that we need for it to get to, this will be an ongoing challenge for us, because I just don't have the safety net that I used to have that allowed me to basically provide the level of service that can accommodate these types of personnel issues on a day-to-day basis. So the long-term solution to this, of course, are in both hiring and retention. And I want to once again thank the board for supporting us with the initiatives that you approved last month that allow for both hiring bonuses as well as retention bonuses, which I think are going to be very impactful as we go into this year. I think it's important to point out that we did meet our goal of last year and hired 452 new bus operators, the majority of which were hired as full-time employees, which makes it much more attractive and allows us to utilize those employees in a lot of very productive and direct ways. In addition to that, I think it's worth noting that we received more than 1,000 bus operator job applications in December, which is if not a record, a near record for us in terms of interest in jobs at CTA. As a result, I have no doubt that this number increased in response to our new hiring retention incentives, and I'm hopeful that trend will continue as we seek to fill the remaining 600 bus operator vacancies that we're facing going into this fiscal year. As I've advised the board for months, CTA is working very hard to identify and bring aboard new bus and rail operators and will continue to do so. In that regard, we are holding one or more job fairs nearly every month on top of pursuing other aggressive marketing and recruitment efforts. In fact, our next job fair will be held here at CTA headquarters on January 28th, and I encourage any interested party that is listening today to join us and apply for a job at CTA. While increasing our operator workforce remains our long-term goal, I also want to highlight that the new bus schedule optimization measures that we implemented to provide more consistent and reliable bus service right now. On January 8th, we made temporary schedule changes to our 52 bus routes throughout our bus network, including many of our highest ridership routes, to help address the unpredictability of wait times. We believe that this schedule optimization will accomplish three major and important goals. One, it allows us to better align scheduled service with the workforce that we currently have available. Two, we're able to provide more consistent intervals between our buses. And three, we will reduce instances of inconsistent gaps in service. We work very closely with our bus union as we plan these adjustments, and it is important to me that our customers know that these changes were made with both equity in mind first, and that the number of service hours we're providing, which we refer to as span of service, have not changed, nor has routing or days of service. We have, however, changed the schedule frequency, which has been adjusted to reflect our available workforce. These changes have allowed us to reestablish our bus operator extra board and will provide more consistent intervals with significant fewer missing trips until more personnel are available. It is still very early in the implementation of these schedules, but as I indicated earlier, the results are very promising and they appear to be meeting the goals that I just laid out, and that we will be delivering both more reliable as well as more consistent service to our customers as we move forward. Furthermore, this change will also result in an improvement to our bus tracker accuracy, and we anticipate fewer instances of what are referred to as ghost buses throughout the system. We're continuing to investigate other ways that we can also improve the reliability of our bus and rail tracker system, and I will be updating you as we implement further updates on this area in the future. The success of this effort was due in large part to our operations team, who are managing the service every day, 24/7. And I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the hardworking operations managers for both bus and rail service, as well as the training and workforce development team and the planning department for working together to successfully implement this major change to our scheduling processes. And I think it's important to point out that while these are significant changes to our processes, we are continuing to look at ways to tweak it even more. We are committed to doing this and getting it as effectively and as efficient as possible as we continue to manage our way through this issue, the workforce issue, over the course of the upcoming year. Before I close, I want to share some of the things that you also will be seeing in 2023 as part of our Meeting the Moment action plan. While the plan as unveiled last year will always be to serve as a blueprint at the core of our improvement efforts, it is also always expanding and being reevaluated and adjusted to best serve our customers. In the near term, we're planning to introduce additional service optimization in our upcoming spring of 2023 schedules, as well as expanding outreach to unhoused riders with DFSS. We will also continue to make enhancements and improvements to our train and bus trackers, as well as investing in new digital customer communication tools, which will make it easier for our customers to communicate to CTA in real time. Lastly, we'll also be working to transition our action plan into part of a longer-term strategy and planning tool that will form the foundation for the work that we do moving forward, really focusing on the 5 pillars that we've identified in the action plan as foundational to the overall planning that this agency makes as we continue to work on the long term to getting our ridership back, stabilizing our revenues and finances, and ultimately continue to develop and grow our transit system as we continue to meet the needs of the city of Chicago and the surrounding suburbs. I look forward to sharing these additional details with you in the coming months on these very important initiatives. I want to thank you for your time and attention to this very important matter, and I am happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions that the board may have at this time.
Thank you, President Carter, for the update. As always, I commend you and your team for your efforts, but I'd like to emphasize how much you and your team have rolled out in a short period of time to address a number of the challenges. You announced the meeting, the moment in last August, and every month following that, you have come back and reported to us on the progress made on some very complex issues. And I want to emphasize that you've been very transparent and reflective because, even today you shared that, December 31st didn't go as planned. So we appreciate that. I think as a board, we want to hear the good, but we want to also, be aware of the challenges. And when we fall short, we want to know that too, to find out how we can improve. And so I appreciate the transparency that you shared this morning. None of these things are easy to address on their own. So taking them all at once and in real time is a true feat. So we understand that. And I want to thank you and your team for the hard work and dedication to this effort to improve our system for our customers. And I don't say this to minimize the challenges that fall ahead. I know we're short-staffed. I know that there are concerns that many of the citizens of Chicago have with the service right now. But the ability to look inward and be reflective and say, hey, this is where we can improve. That is what, as a board member, I want to see more of, so that the public understands that these are challenges that we're facing, but we're ready to take those on. So I want to thank you for your comments this morning. I want to open up to any of the other board members who may want to have comments with respect to President Carter's report this morning.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think I just want to echo what you just said. I think it's extremely important to be reflective, especially in the beginning of the year, to really look at what worked, what did not work, what do you want me to do more of, and what would you like me to stop doing? I think those are the 4 key questions that we need to continuously ask. And I look at the scorecard and I know we're doing everything we can. And so I think just being transparent and sharing these learnings on a monthly basis, not just with us, but with the public, I think that's going to be instrumental in earning trust back. So thank you. This was really, really critical to be out there and say it out loud that, hey, we messed up, and there are things in our control and there are some things that's just not in our control. So I appreciate that.
I think, look, I hear in the comments the frustration that our customers have over the service that we're providing. And, I know that my team beats themselves up just as much every day when they can't meet that level of expectation. And you should know that I have conversations with my team every day about what we did right, what we did wrong, what we can improve on, to your point of inner reflection and sort of looking at how to improve. That is a constant process at CTA. Sometimes we're successful at it, sometimes we fail. But we're not afraid to acknowledge our failures. And as we've indicated, work on what we can do to basically address it and mitigate it in the future. And that's certainly what we're doing. There is no handbook or roadmap that I can follow to do what we're doing right now. We've never done anything like this ever in the history of our organization. And it's not unlike everything else that we've dealt with over the last 3 years as we've dealt with this pandemic. We kind of work our way through it as we go along. I'm confident in the plan that I put in place. I'm confident in the goals that we've established for ourselves. But I recognize as we move towards that, I have to be flexible in how we deal with this, as we're going to face new challenges and unexpected issues that are going to ultimately impact our ultimate success in implementing the plan itself. And so I think I've instilled in my team, and I certainly try to show through my leadership, a commitment to doing that. And it is my hope that as I continue to report to the board, that you will see that in both our transparency around what we're doing, but also in the approaches that we're taking to try to address the problems that we're identifying. As I indicated in my report, We had this serious absenteeism problem that we have to deal with now. It's impacting us in ways that we didn't contemplate, but in ways that we can still address. And Kent and his team have been working very closely with my operations team as we both look at the legal options that we have for what we're going to do. But more importantly, looking at what it takes to motivate our employees to get to work every day. And how are we going to better do that? And what else is happening? So we don't view this as a pure, we need to discipline our way out of this problem. I'll be quite honest with you. I can't afford to fire more employees. I don't have enough employees as it is. What I really want to talk about is what is motivating you to make those decisions? How do I change that culture in a way that will make you want to be here, or make you want to support your fellow employees and your teammates to ensure that we're providing the service that we need to every day? CTA as an organization is very mission driven. I think when I've had consultants come in here and take a look at our organization, one of the things that has always been sort of the top identifiable positive that they've had, in spite of all the other issues we deal with, is that at our core, our employees know, understand, and appreciate the mission of what it is that we do in terms of providing transportation services to this region on a daily basis. That's a huge plus for us organizationally. It is one of the things that is most challenging for most organizations, to get all of your employees to buy into the mission of the organization. We don't have that problem. I think our employees have bought into our mission. There are other things that are preventing them from supporting that mission. And it's my job as the leader of this organization and my management team to take a look at that and see where and how we can better improve it. We're doing employee surveys. We're engaging our employees more. As you've heard, I'm working very closely with the union and the union leadership to get their support for the things that we need to do. We all recognize that we've got a problem here, and that if we are going to be, if we're going to be able to be successful in the future, if we're going to be able to stabilize our agency, continue to provide the services that we provide, continue to provide the jobs that we're providing to our employees, we have to get this back on track. And I'm committed to doing that. My staff is committed to doing that. I think the vast majority of our employees are committed to doing that. And for those employees who aren't part of that commitment, we've got to figure out how we get them there, or what we need to do to address that.
Any other comments from board members?
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. I want to begin by saying thank you, President Carter, for the report and your monthly reports. And, I've heard everything that's been said. Obviously, we've been talking about it for months now. But I also have to listen with the ear of a consumer. And listening with the ear of a consumer, what I hear is, okay, we do have worker shortage. We got that. We have other things that are happening with CTA as far as employees. And, I think that personally, I feel that you and the staff at CTA are doing a wonderful job. But again, listening as a consumer, I don't necessarily want to hear all of the problems. I want to know what the fix is. And when I say that, it sounds like, when we have public comments, most of the public comments are one or two things. It's about security. It's about the unreliability of knowing within at least 5 to 7 minutes when a train or bus will be there. My question is, and maybe we've talked about this before, and it's just my old age has had me forget, is there a way with the scheduling of the bus and rail that persons can, because again, this is what I'm hearing, that persons can get that as close to real time as possible, as opposed to, having a schedule with ghost buses and things of that nature. It sounds as if, and if I'm wrong, please correct me, that what people are asking for is they'd rather know what time something will be there, as opposed to, I got to wait now 45 minutes, as opposed to knowing, okay, well, if I got to wait 45 minutes, it gives me another option to do something different. as opposed to just waiting for something that's supposed to arrive in 10 and doesn't arrive to 45. Is there a way to get that done so that at least people don't? It seems like the problem is they're frustrated with having to wait. And and I hope I'm making myself clear.
You are.
Okay.
Yeah, no, you're making it very clear. I think that what you're hitting on is one of the objectives of the service optimization effort. The reason I have ghost buses and ghost trains is that my schedule, which is what the foundational basis is for the bus tracker and rail tracker technology, was not aligning with the actual service I was putting out. And so when we started service optimization, one of the goals of that effort was to basically align our service with the schedule, which would then ensure that you weren't getting more ghost buses and ghost trains. And so when I tell you that I'm putting out 90% of the scheduled service every day, that means that the chances of seeing a ghost bus or a ghost train has been reduced to about 10%. Because that means everything that's going out there is out there. When you see a ghost bus or a ghost train, what in fact is happening is that the technology is basically following what they believe to be a bus or a train based on the schedule. And then at some point in time, that technology tells you that there isn't a real bus or train out there, and then it drops it out of the tracker. And that's what people refer to as the ghost bus or the ghost train, is that they see something coming along, and then all of a sudden it disappears. That is a direct reflection of what we've been challenged with dealing with for the past several months. When I mentioned the bus optimization effort that we undertook, we were putting out somewhere between 70 and 80% of service on the bus side every day compared to schedule. Normally, pre-pandemic, we'd be putting out somewhere between 97 and 98% of service. So the idea of a ghost bus, it wasn't like it didn't exist. It was just fairly rare because most of the service that was out there was actually running. With the service optimization levels, I will preface this with, this is just the first week. And so I don't want to get my expectations too high here because I need more data to reflect that. But I can tell you, in the first week, we have seen service levels in the 90s. I haven't seen that since before the pandemic. Now, is it up to 97%? No. But that is a substantial improvement over where we were, just a week before. If that trend holds, you're going to see a significant reduction in ghost buses. My bus tracker will be much more reliable, and we will ultimately be able to give our customers exactly what you're describing here, which is the ability to look at the bus tracker, see when that bus is going to come, and know when they need to go out to that bus stop to catch that bus. On the rail side, we did something similar about a month ago, and we did see improvement on the rail side as well. We went up into the mid to upper 80 percentile on our rail service. Recently, this past month, that dropped. And part of the reason was this other issue that I'm dealing with, which I should point out is a much more visible problem on rail than it is on bus. The fact that I have so much bus service out, covering so many routes over such a large part of the city, you don't necessarily see it the same way you see it on the Brown line, which has a limited number of rail cars that operate on a limited schedule for a limited period of time. And when one operator doesn't show up, that is immediately noticed in the way in which that line runs on a daily basis. So we have to do better. And I hear that from our customers. I hear that from my board. I know that we're not where we need to be with regards to that. We're already working on further enhancement to our optimization efforts on the rail side in anticipation of the next pick that we're going to have later this year. We continue to work with the union on how we better improve the attendance of our rail operating employees who need to come to work to allow us to provide this service. And I continue to move classes through rail training to increase the number of rail operators so that I can get to a point where I have an extra board, which is the thing that we were talking about earlier, that will allow me to deal with and absorb these types of fluctuations on a daily basis, which is really hard for me to do right now. I think the thing to remember, the most important thing to remember here is that the easiest solution for me would have been to just cut service. It would have been the solution that would have basically given me all the employees I needed, would have allowed me to basically have the extra board that I want, and I would have cut service by 40%. And all the same customers that we're hearing today complaining about, the fact they have to wait 45 minutes for a bus or for a train, that would be the normal, that would be the scheduled service every 45 minutes. And the person who complained to us about how crowded the trains are today, those trains would be even more crowded than they are. So finding the sweet spot between those two issues is not easy. And it's not a science, it's an art. And we continue to work it. I'm blessed to have what I think are some of the most talented people in this industry who work this issue for me every day. I'm not someone who knows how to figure this out, but I trust the people who do. And I'm committed to working with them to get us to the place where we know that we're doing what we can do to the best of our ability. But more importantly, and I want everyone to remember this, that as we get our workforce back, I'm putting that service back. This is not a service cut. This is not something where I'm going to sit here and say, get used to 45-minute headways, because that's all we're going to ever do. We have been blessed, and I think you've heard it from our customers, to have one of the best, robust, frequent transit services in the country. People, as one of our commenters said, they moved to the city because they knew we had the type of transit service that would meet their needs going forward. I'm not abandoning that goal. My staff are not abandoning that goal, but we need time. And in the meantime, I need the patience of my riding public to understand that it's not going to be the way we want it to be, but we're going to constantly keep improving it until we get it back to where it should be. And I'm committed to doing that as quickly as possible. So yes, you're absolutely right. That is what my customers want. I think that we're in a better position to deliver that today than we were, say, 3 months ago. But we still have more work to do, and we're going to continue to do that until we feel that we've addressed this as best as we can, while continuing to obviously rebuild our ranks so that I eliminate this problem completely.
Thank you. We've got some time constraints. Any other comments before we move on?
Let me just say one thing, ditto to what you said, Chairman Barclay, put it in real good term, and the other directors. Just want to say thank you for the report, President Carter, and you and your team done a great job. Just trying to check up on, January 28th, another job fair coming.
Yes.
December, 1,000 application, and it may be too soon to know, but out of those 1,000 application, how is that process, or do you have some kind of timeline when we will know the effectiveness of these job fairs?
Yeah, we'll certainly have results from the job fair itself shortly after we hold the event. How many people applied, what position they applied for, so on and so forth. With regards to the 1,000 applications, I don't have data right now on sort of where everyone is in that process. And when we know that how many of those 1,000 will result in actual jobs at CTA. I would point out that one of the benefits of the job fair, which is separate from the 1,000 applications I'm talking about, is that it's a one-stop shop event. We're going to have everything there to process you through everything that you need to do at that moment, so that the only thing that will be left will be things like the background check and other things that you don't control the timing on. But in terms of getting your medical, getting your fingerprints, getting all the other things that we need from you in order to do everything that we need to do, we are setting it up here so that all of that can be done right then and there at that location. So we did something similar to this a month or two ago. It was very successful for us. It was a very big turnout. We got a lot of people who came through the door. We are hopeful, particularly, this will be the first one since we put in the new incentives. The hiring bonuses and everything like that. We are hopeful that we're going to get a really big turnout at this event. We're obviously marketing it and communicating it throughout the city. We're letting all of our elected officials know that we're having it, so that they have people who want to attend it, they can. And it's our expectation that this will be a very big event, a very successful event for us. And I will gladly report out on all of that in an upcoming report to the board.
Thank you, President Carter. Our next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of December 14th, 2022. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I had my hand up for earlier, but that's okay.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Let's go back then.
Uncertain.
I just wanted to emphasize the portion of accuracy. I think if we're to the best that we can do in terms of accuracy, I know it's been consistently throughout this conversation. I just wanted to put an extra exclamation mark on that one. I think as a user, as a board member, as our team members, I think just having a tighter eye on that, which is exactly what is being done, will be really helpful. So having said that, I second our motion right now.
And then I do apologize to you, Director.
That's okay.
Okay, for the oversight. So it's been moved and second.
Call for the vote. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
And Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next order of business is executive session. It's my understanding, Kent, that there is an executive session today.
Yes, Chairman, we will move into closed session pursuant to Section 2, Paragraph C, Subparagraph 11 of the Illinois Open Meetings Act.
I will now entertain a motion to recess into executive session for reasons stated by counsel.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Ja?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
The motion passes.
So moved.
I will now entertain a motion to return to open session.
So moved.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller? Director Miller had to leave the meeting. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Shaw?
Yes.
Director Silver?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
The motion passes.
We will now address board item number 5A. Kent?
Thank you, Chairman. In executive session, we discussed the lawsuit of Diane and Thomas Schechner versus CTA and Lanice Jones. This lawsuit involved an accident that occurred on August the 2nd, 2019 at about 7:45 a.m. when the plaintiff was struck by a CTA bus at the intersection of Ontario and Fairbanks Streets and sustained severe injury. Following mediation, the plaintiffs have now indicated a willingness to accept in full settlement of this lawsuit, the amount of $20 million, of which amount insurance will reimburse CTA $5 million, plus our costs of suit. The law department recommends settlement in that amount.
Thank you, Kent. May I have a motion to approve a settlement in the case of Diane Schechner and Thomas Schechner versus Chicago Transit Authority and Lanice Jones, case number 19L9142, in the amount of $20 million, $5 million of which will be reimbursed by insurance along with the cost of the suit.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
The motion having been moved and seconded, I'll call for votes. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Shaw?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you, Kent. Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The committee met earlier this morning and approved the December 14 committee minutes and reviewed the finance report. The committee reviewed two ordinances: an ordinance authorizing a third amendment to a locker location pilot agreement with Amazon.com Services LLC, an ordinance authorizing a license agreement with Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church for property located at 57 West 95th Street, Chicago, Illinois. The committee also reviewed 7 contracts. The committee approved and recommend for board approval both ordinance and the 7 contracts. The committee approved and recommend by roll call vote the ordinance authorizing a third amendment to a locker location pilot agreement with Amazon.com Services LLC with 6 yes votes and 1 abstention. The committee placed the ordinance authorizing the license agreement with Christ Temple Missionary Baptist Church and all 7 contracts on the omnibus. And that concludes my report, Chairman Barkley.
I'd just like to note for the record that with respect to the Amazon locker location pilot, it passed with 5 yes votes and 2 abstentions, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Director Silva. I will now entertain a motion to approve the ordinance authorizing a third amendment to the locker location pilot program with Amazon.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Miller? I'm sorry. Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Shaw?
Abstain.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barkley?
Abstain.
The motion passes with 4 yeas and 2 abstentions. I will now
I will now entertain a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva.
So moved.
Second.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Shaw?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Barclay.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney and Brittany Johnson.
Good morning again. I am Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer, and I'm joined by Brittany. You want to introduce yourself, Brittany?
Hello, everyone. My name is Brittany Johnson, and I'm the Acting Director for the Diversity Programs Department. Good morning.
Great. We will begin our monthly construction update with our partnership project with the Chicago Department of Transportation for the new station being built at Damon. They have advanced completion of the sub-foundation work for the station house. Really, this is the mat foundation. We've shown you some work around the caissons and the framework around that. This will be the basis of the new station house, and there'll be a bunch of other substructures added off of that. They also have been in the process of prepping for some structural modifications, and we can show you a couple pictures of some other activities on the site. So here is that completed mat foundation for the main station house. This is again kind of that anchor point for the station house that the grade beams will be built off of. Next slide. And here they are doing some subgrade utility work to be able to route it around the site as they need to start coming in and laying those grade beams off that mat foundation and need to relocate some utilities to accommodate for that. And so in kind of future months, you'll see a lot more work kind of around the existing structure in preparation for the earth retention systems to be able to make modifications to that to accommodate that new station platform. So we can move on to our next project. Our next project is our non-revenue vehicle facility. It's been really exciting. We've got walls. So we finished most of the major foundational work, and they started putting up the precast walls, and we got some photos of that. And this has really been the focus over the last couple of weeks. So you can start to see this framework of the building. So this is off of 63rd Street looking south in the front, what will be the frontage of that building. And I think we got the kind of a close up of that of the east. This is, let's see, the west side of the building where the main loading dock will be. And I think we've got a bigger site photo from distance. Yeah. And so here's what it's looking like at night. So we actually these walls are actually craned in place or prefabricated at that height. And then they're actually rolled up into place and then secured with shoring on the inside. And then we build out all the steel structural frame for the building inside that. And then the last set of walls, which is the farthest south, actually get in and close the building. And then we deck the top of it. So next month, you'll start to see some of that steel framework coming in and the deck coming in. So this is really exciting. You're really starting to see the bones of this building and get a sense of its size and kind of, even though it is a major kind of maintenance facility, it has a lot of architectural thought put into it. Next slide. This is our Canalberry Damon substation project. Most of the activity has focused really around Haymarket Canal and Damon. And we can look at some photos. I can go through some of those activities. So at Damon, we've been actually preparing for AC duct installation. So ComEd has been on site. They have brought power to the what ultimately is a new substation site and created a vault where that power terminates. And then this duct bank actually then takes that power from the vault and brings it up to the chase runs that are going to be buried below the slab that allows to power the equipment once it gets into the facility. So this is kind of sub-foundation utility work that will be going on. And then in the upcoming months, you'll start to see some of that foundation work similar. You've seen some of these other buildings. We showed you some of the work of the micro piles, and we'll add grade beams, which is really what the building gets built off of. So we can flip to the next slide. This is at Canal and the subway. So last month I showed you them pouring the foundation for the new breaker house that's going in there. This is now the completed foundation in that area, getting ready to prep for that breaker house coming in. They've been piping in utilities and new lighting and other items kind of around that. And then ultimately we start building the facility in that space. Next slide. And this is Haymarket, which is just again down the street from 567 West Lake, where we're upgrading all the equipment because we're sharing power out of this substation with that canal breaker house. And to be able to upgrade that equipment, we had to expand that courtyard wall and make it a little bigger for it. So here's the foundation of that courtyard wall. Last week, we showed you some of the understructure work for that, and they're starting to form up and prepare to add the brickwork there to form it in completely. With that, I'll move on to RPM, which continues tight to schedule and on budget. Move to the next slide, please. Lots of activity as we finished the year. So we came in and we on the red purple bypass and had a lot of activity over Clark Street, where we started setting the steel to connect the rest of our North Main Line Stage 2, where I've shown you kind of the precast beams on the north side of Clark Street and the precast beams on the south side of Clark Street. Now we've actually got steel going across Clark Street. We took a 5-day closure and hung all the major steel there. We continue to build the deck on top of that and getting ready to pour concrete or pouring concrete in certain circumstances. Up in the LBMM corridor, the Lawrence Bryn Mawr modernization area, we finished into the last of the segmental box erection. So the last pieces were set right at the end of the year. And we're actually securing them all in place and completing kind of that full deck. So next month to see the finished kind of product on that. It's really exciting. It's a major milestone in the project, really in the city in some cases. We continued building out the Winona Relay House, as well as getting ready for the Stage B temp station. So we've got some photos around those things. So here's, again, kind of North Mainline deck pours. So this is where we had already installed precast beams. They poured in the concrete deck on top of that. Next slide. And here's a kind of a site shot that shows you the erection of the precast beams into that steel area that I mentioned, kind of going over Clark Street. You can see on the north side of the bypass there, the precast beams and that deck pour I just mentioned. On the south side of the photo, you can see the precast beams you've seen in previous months, and then prepping for a deck pour there, and then you can start to see that fill-in area. Next slide. Here's that steel I mentioned over Clark Street. So this was a 5-day closure where we trucked in these long span steel structures. Due to the height of clearance on Clark Street, we actually had to do steel versus the precast beams here. So it's a little different than what you've seen in some of these other areas. And they'll ultimately form it up though and pour it the same way they are with the precast beams. Next slide. And then here's kind of another view of that overall. And we can move on to the next slide. And here up in the LBMM corridor, you've got some of that prep work for the next stage. So we're actually starting to build those new temporary station houses. Our prior temporary station house at Bryn Mawr has actually won a couple significant architectural awards in the area, which is really, really exciting for a temporary facility to be recognized as a really important, significant piece of architecture. And we expect to have a very quality product here in the end as well for this phase change station. So this is Bryn Mawr, where they're building the foundations for that next temp station. Next slide. This is Winona Relay House. So I've been showing you, this is unlike a lot of the ones you saw on Your New Blue Signal, where we actually have prefabricated house. This is a relay room that we're building in place underneath the structure. We've shown you kind of the walls all the way up to the ceiling, and now we're inside the building, and this is the finished kind of wall here, and they'll add all the equipment into this room. So over the upcoming couple months, you'll see the installation of that equipment coming in. Next slide. And then we're still building track. As we complete kind of that segmental box erection, we come behind and we build ties and we build rail, and then we start adding third rail and we get ready to do our phase change later this year. Next slide. And then here are those last segments being set in place for really, this was right at the holidays at the end of the year. So this was a really exciting moment in time to be able to see those last pieces hanging there. Next slide. And what would be the holidays without Santa stopping by to take a ride on the gantry as we went into it. So I actually, at one point, brought my kids over to the area to show them Santa and the highlights in the gantry. I think the gantry is still one of the coolest things to go out and see, and I certainly encourage it to take a look at it. Next slide. And as we wind it down December and the end of the year, we kept up with our regular outreach events with the 44th Ward Office, 48th Ward Office. We did hold some meetings with Houndstooth Saloon right there at Clark and Roscoe to coordinate their Open for Business campaign during that closure of Clark Street with that big beam erection there I talked about. And we had our monthly virtual office meetings. But as we got into the holiday, we got a little more narrow on some of the outreach going on, but we're picking it up fresh in the new year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Brittany.
Thanks, Bill. Good morning, directors. Brittany Johnson, Acting Director of Diversity Program. Diversity Programs continues to meet with the contractors monthly to discuss DBE and workforce outreach and compliance. We also continue to send out opportunities from Wash Floor to the DBE community so they are aware of the trade packages and how to submit their bids. On January 18th, we will be hosting an RPM workforce outreach event in the project footprint. The event will be hosted at Truman College and targeted to union card holders with an interest in learning about trade employment opportunities on the CTA's RPM project. The event will feature a presentation with speakers from CTA, Wash Floor, and the RPM Workforce Partners, Hire 360, and the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. And following the presentation, the attendees will be invited to network with representatives from various unions, subcontractors, and our workforce assist agencies involved on the project. As of December 31st, DBEs have been awarded over $236 million between the design and construction packages. Additionally, the $236 million has been awarded to 88 unique DBE firms. This is the result of the outreach that has been conducted by CTA and the Prime to ensure the entire DBE community is aware of the opportunities on the project. One of the goals of RPM was to engage with DBE firms that had never participated on a CTA project, and some of these firms are well established and some are new to the industry. Of the 88 unique firms, 34 are new to CTA. And on the workforce side, as of December 31st, over 1,700 unique individuals have worked over 1 million labor hours and earned over $62 million. These represent family-sustaining middle-class jobs, which is why we continue to outreach through the community to ensure the residents of economically disadvantaged areas have the resources to access these careers. Thank you.
And we'll be glad to take any questions at this time.
Any questions for Mr. Mooney and Ms. Johnson?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I just wanted to take advantage of this moment as part of the construction report to just let the board know that earlier this week, I signed the MOU with SEPTA to allow us to now start engaging in reciprocity between their DBEs and CTA's DBEs and vice versa. You just heard Brittany talk about the number of new DBEs that we have on RPM. I'm hopeful that with this MOU that we have in place, it's going to open up a whole nother level of new DBEs who will do business with us, if not on this project, on RLE or other future capital projects in the future. The event itself was very well attended. It got some national media attention in some of the industry magazines, and was certainly touted as a terrific example of the work and the opportunity for partnership between transit agencies to basically promote and encourage the level of inclusivity and diversity among our DBE community as we continue to move projects forward.
Wonderful. I think you talked about that a few months ago. I'm glad that got signed, and we look forward to other MOUs with other transit authorities throughout the country to expand the base of minority participation.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. And my question is fueled from a conversation I had last night. Have we reached out to, or has someone reached out to the Urban League to have, to think about having a job fair with the Urban League? Reached out to Karen Wilson?
When you're talking about job fair, are you referring to CTA jobs or
yes, I'm sorry, yes. No, I'm sorry, CTA jobs.
Okay. I can find out the answer for you, that director. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I can get an answer and get that information back to the board.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. Our final order of business is new business. Kent, is there any new business?
No, Chairman, no new business.
Since there's no further business to come before the board, may I have a motion to adjourn the Chicago Transit Board meeting for January 13th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
On that motion, Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Ortiz?
Yes.
Director Lee?
Yes.
Director Jha?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
And Chairman Barkley?
Yes.
The motion passes. We are adjourned.